the thing that we're trying to deliver, the subject matter we're trying to deliver, yoga, breath, meditation, spirituality, this is the hardest stuff to teach, period. But to do it online is a real challenge.
I think I've told you this, like everyone in my family is a teacher. My father was a teacher. My mother was a teacher. So my father taught high school at a private boys' school. That's actually now it's listed as one of the top private schools in the world. It's always on the list of top 50 private schools in the United States. I mean, I went to kind of like, I guess you compare it to like Eton, one of those very prestigious high schools. And my father was a teacher there, very beloved teacher. My mother taught elementary school. She was awarded the Alabama Science Teacher of the Year award at one point, and she's been nominated for the Disney teaching program.
Wow.
Just to say that my parents were amazing teachers. And then my sister, she's currently a psych nurse, but she taught early elementary education for many years. My brother currently is he works with alternative education. He currently is a curriculum director for a school that is, actually he's doing the science curriculum for a high school that is a Montessori high school. And so he has a long background in working with high school level education that's kind of alternative views of education, and an advocate for that. And then there's more. All of my aunts are college professors. So my aunt, we call her Susie, but her real name's Karen. It's confusing, but she is the head of communications at a school in New Jersey College. My Aunt Sharon is also in communications, a professor. And so it's just like in my blood to be a teacher. And when I got into yoga, to me, it was like meta teaching, it's sort of like teaching you, just teaching at a pure level. To me, yoga it's the heart of education, and that you're learning about yourself and all the things that you educate for. And it's also very, very difficult to teach it in a way that you're really bringing out the best in people rather than just having them parrot you.
Yes, it's interesting that you basically grew up with I don't know, were you born with a number 2 pencil or a ruler in your house?
With a green marking pen.
Not a red marking pen.
No, my mom always used a green marking pen.
But in contrast, I mean, nobody in my family was a teacher, and but pretty early on, by the 5th grade, 6th, 8th, whatever, but really 8th grade, 9th grade, starting about then, I don't know, I found something with specific teachers that lit me up. And, my home life was nothing to brag about. And I really kind of gravitated to, the point I'm trying to make is that teachers, specific teachers, have meant the world to me. And specifically the teachers who are not teacherly. Specifically the ones who were a little bit rebellious, a little bit not well behaved, and which brings me, the whole thing about teaching yoga and breath and meditation as we're doing. To me, is closely aligned with Neil Postman's teaching as a subversive activity.
Well, as we were talking about teachers and this aspect of teaching yoga, and all the teachers that inspired us, then I have to talk about the teacher that we share, which is Erich Schiffmann. And because I am like a teacher, and I grew up in all this, anytime I go into a classroom, there's always a part of me that's, assessing the teaching. And there's a certain part of me that's always there, kind of thinking how I would teach it. But I tell you, in Eric's classroom, and I've gone in over and over and over again, I just sit there slack-jawed. And I think he says everything perfect. And there's nothing that I could say that would make me a better, would say it any better. And I'm always sort of struck, because there's this part of me that goes into the classroom with my ego, thinking that sort of battling it and thinking all these different things. And then I sit there and I'm literally like, I have just never experienced a more perfect teacher. And I grew up with these incredible teachers. And so to have experienced it, I really feel like he showed what a yoga teacher could be to me. And I think that his influence on sadhana just can't be understated at all. Like, I think he is, the reason that you and I have a vision of this kind of education and what yoga education can be is because we've experienced a teacher who showed us what it can be like.
It warrants mentioning that we met at Eric's. Well, you weren't in that teacher training, but we met at Lake George. What was that? 2001. Anyway,
I know I've looked that up, that Lake George, because there was an interesting confluence of people there that I've talked to many people that I've crossed paths with them, and there were just a lot of people there that were very, it seemed like it was this very interesting event. So just because we are recording this, and we were going to take notes and then record something, but I think it's just turned out to be perfect, so I'm just recording. So for somebody who's watching this in a replay, Lake George was an event, I guess it was 2001, so we'll say 2001. There were 2 years where it ran with such an interesting structure, because what they did was you would take for a week with one teacher, like you took with Eric, right?
Yes.
Erich Schiffmann. And so I took with Donna Farhi. And then, I was supposed to, I kind of wanted to go with Eric, but he was already filled up, which is sort of an interesting aspect of what happened at that particular event. Because Jay's laughing because he knows what happened with that event. But anyway, Eric had recommended
I stole your spot.
Nobody stole my spot. I could have been there just like everyone else was at Eric's. So there were all these major teachers there. I know David Life was there. Who is what is the name of
Jivamukti David,
and had his own little squad. Shannon Gannon, was Shannon there too? Shannon
yes.
Gannon. I don't remember if I got to see her. I definitely remember him. He's memorable.
Richard Freeman.
Richard Freeman was there. Donna Farhi. There was a Iyengar teacher, Mary Dunn.
Mary Dunn
was there. Someone, I feel like we're getting there. I don't know. So you know who else was there? Rod Stryker.
Rod Stryker. Yeah, Rod Stryker.
Because I remember having conversations with him. So we had these incredible teachers, the best of the best were all there. You took, in the mornings, you would take study with them, teacher training with the one, and then the afternoon there would be a different teacher rotating into your room. So you got to experience them. And what was interesting, I was kind of smiling about Eric, because what was happening is, as he would rotate into different rooms, it was kind of like this Pied Piper effect, where, you know, he'd take like 10 of the students out of the room, following him like little puppy dogs. And eventually his room, which already was the largest room, and his event was already sold out, like at least doubled in size throughout the week. And I think it was a little disconcerting for these other teachers, who are all amazing teachers, to watch what was happening. But just to say what a good teacher he was, that stacked up against all of these teachers, students were actually leaving, you know, Rod Stryker's class that they had specifically come to study with him, to study with Erich, and that was going on all week long. It was unreal to watch it.
But, you know, I think because we've been talking about instructional design and, you know, the nuts and bolts of how to construct teaching, which is what instructional design is all about. But Erich's, you know, I mean, that's not Erich. What?
No, definitely he does not sit there and plan it all out.
but the reason Erich, you know, since I first read his book, first of all, I found out that he wanted to be an artist but couldn't afford to go to art school, so he ended up going to England to study yoga or somewhere. The point is that Erich is one of those teachers who is, I want to say not well behaved, but Erich is the height of, you know, I mean, he's never badly behaved, but what I mean is Erich is not compliant to anything anyone else might tell him to do. Yeah. And that is what I love about him and his teaching. And, you know, he reminds me so much of a writing teacher I had, Joseph Cottarelli. I mean, I have this one quote that pops up over and over again from Cottarelli, which is, trust the authority of your own experience. And that, to me, is what Erich teaches.
That is it. Absolutely.
It's not easy to do that. You know, it takes courage to do that. It's not a blithe, follow your bliss, you know, tripping down the light-filled path through the rose garden. I mean, you know, Svadharma means self-path. And that's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to teach. You know, in the yoga world, the word that's used is transformation. In the learning theory world that I, you know, when I was doing this in the ISD masters at UMBC, I discovered there was this whole field called transformative learning theory.
So I want to say, like, even though Erich doesn't, like, you know, plan out his lessons, et cetera, he definitely works at being a good teacher. And so I think that this, you know, the fact is that you can sort of bottle the magic. And this is what you're saying, is that there's an area where it actually speaks specifically about, you know, in a detailed way, how do you achieve this experience of creating transformation in people, rather than just kind of that school learning where somebody stands in front of the blackboard and you recite back.
Yes, yeah. So it's the difference between, you know, traditional education, schooling. The two kinds of learning are informative and transformative. So informative is, you know, you soak in what the teacher gives you on the blackboard, but it doesn't change you. It just adds to your knowledge. Transformative learning is like a chemical reaction. And that's what yoga and breath meditation do. It's a chemical reaction where if you really open yourself up and you actually engage full on with your breath, with meditation, with yoga practice, it will lead you to it will lead you to transformation in the sense of, like a butterfly, you'll become what you're supposed to be, rather than following what someone else has told you you're supposed to be. And again,
we have a saying in my high school that we have a more succinct way of saying it: learning through living.
Yes, learning through living. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that I want to work with people who are out to learn through living, not just to learn. I mean, I can teach anybody how to do coherent breathing in 5 minutes. I can teach you how to do triangle pose correctly.
Yes.
That's not. Those are just means. They're not the why.
But what we can teach, what you and I can teach now, which I think people have been, I know I was looking for a long time in the yoga world as well, is how do you teach people that way? How do you teach people transformatively? How do you teach them so that they're not listening to you, they're listening to themselves? And I was always seeking that because that was what I received from yoga. That was what I knew yoga was. And then I would go to class and teachers were sort of like, follow me, do it this way. And the first time that I really had a teacher who was deliberately teaching transformationally, was structuring her class to teach transformationally, was Helen Heffer, who was my other mentor, and her classes were off the hook. I mean, and very different from Erich's in that she definitely did structure them for transformation. There was an obvious structure to her classes. And she spent a great deal of time designing it so that every experience really sort of shook you. And she is just an incredible teacher, but just very difficult to replicate how she teaches because she doesn't teach the same way every time. And so, she changed my life, but I kind of walked out of that thinking like, that was really amazing, but I don't know how to, I couldn't teach another person how to do it. Like I struggled to become a teacher like her, even after practicing with her for 2 years, because every class was just a totally new class. And so I think that I started to really think about like, how could I explain to another person, how do you teach in a way that lights you up the way she lit me up? And so I think that we have an ability to do that now. Like, I think that we've been seeking to explain to other teachers, you're right, this is what yoga is. It's about transformation, and there's actual tools and techniques that you can use. And it starts with learning instructional design theory at a fundamental level, and then it gets into how do you do the transformational work.
Yeah, I mean, there are tactics, there are strategies, there are tools, there are procedures, but also the first and foremost, is to be real to be real with the people you're engaging with.
Yeah, that's really it. To be real and also I think it's important to acknowledge to yoga teachers that they're right in wanting that it's, that just the most fundamental thing, that they're not the only one out there seeking this way of teaching and feeling that something's wrong about what they're learning in their teacher training programs.
Yeah, what's that thing about transactional versus like if you if you write on the blackboard, if you just write on the blackboard, or as a yoga teacher, you just demonstrate and the student mimics what you're doing. Of course it's valuable and it's necessary, it's foundational. But it's a transaction of information from you to the student. And you have to have that, but it ain't enough.
No, it's not. I was just getting my power cord, so sorry for a little clunkiness. Exactly that. You need more. And you do have to know the foundation, and you do have to know where people are as learners. It's not appropriate to take somebody who just walked in off the street and say, I'm going to change your life. You know, guy who just walked in off the street, let me show you where you put your feet on the mat. You know, like, you got to meet them where they're at. They're not looking to have their life blown out of the water right then. They need some care and attention. So I think that when you talk about those things, but, you know, not to get like tool specific about in design, I want to talk about like how sadhana, that we're doing this is what we're about, that sadhana that we are teachers who have sought after creating transformational learning. We've created a company, a system for working together collaboratively to actually create this kind of training. We're trying to show people with the training that yes, it's possible to create something, like you said, you know, to be real. And, you know, the buzzword these days online is authentic. But that it is actually possible to use the tools of online learning to really touch people's lives and transform people's lives.
You know, I think a lot of the time I neglect to make acknowledgments, but I think it bears saying that you, similar to me, you have this combination of being a professional instructional designer, being, trained in engineering, and also being a yogi and a teacher. And, this is sort of I think this is what makes sadhana unique.
Yeah, it never occurred to me before I started doing this that I could be all of me. And, I was always like, when I was teaching, I was leaving behind my engineering self. And when I was at engineering, I was leaving behind my yoga self. And I actually went through this really difficult period a couple of years ago as I was trying to start up sadhana, where I really had to make a decision, like, could I bring my yoga self to engineering, or was I bringing my engineering self to yoga? And ultimately what I found is that I was bringing my engineering self to yoga, and that that was an important decision to realize that. And it's too bad, because I think that engineering could really use some yoga. The way that they do product development, I think, could really benefit from the, encouraging people to have that spark of inspiration rather than this old model they're in. But unfortunately, what I found was that there's a limitation to the kind of person that you can be in a corporate environment. Whereas in the yoga environment, I'm free to be my whole self with all of my issues. As we've worked on this, if I've had a bad day, somebody's had a bad day, we're like, take the afternoon, like, don't worry about the work today. Like, go to the lake, recover. You just got back from a hiking trip, because you needed that. And you don't get that in an environment, the corporate environment. Nobody says, no, there are corporations doing it, but, mine is not. I would say generally it's not happening in the engineering world, which is quite old-fashioned.
You know, it's a because the almost by definition, the business world, the corporate world, you know, it is a transactional activity. It ain't about people. It's about transaction. It's about utility. It's about I hand you this product and you hand me money. And or you know, if it's an employee, I hand you money and you hand me work. I mean, you know, it's not, it ain't it's just not personal. That's the nature.
I think at its heart it is, and I think, you know, I see it could be, but unfortunately I just felt that like it would be really pushing. You know, ultimately I actually see Sadhana going in a sort of engineering-ish direction in a lot of ways, or a software development direction for goals that I have, big goals that I have for it, because I just realized like I just need my own space to do this kind of stuff, the kind of work that I want to do. And what was really cool is that, you know, we're able to connect and support each other. You know, with Catherine's Courts specifically, you've done some of the work here and there, but I would say more importantly, you've played the role of almost like the cheerleader of just being there every week as we've had meetings where you're working on your course, your book, and that you've been just bringing in your ideas about what we can do and being a part of the, you know, that regular team that's saying keep going. Because I mean, that we've had weeks where so much got done, and we have had weeks where the most we did was show up to a meeting that week. but we always showed up to the meetings.
And yeah, I think that's, you know, that's really where the that's when the strength of the center is tested. You know, if the center cannot hold, then the whole thing falls apart. And what has gotten us, you, Sadhana, the course, to this point is that there is a center, you know, a shared commitment, shared values, I suppose. You know, I don't know what to call it except the center that made us keep showing up.
Yeah, I think it's what you're saying, you know, earlier, that it's being real with each other, and that we, you know, we felt that connection to this purpose of what we were doing. And it's kind of cool, like in this call, I think we've kind of articulated it in a way that we never have, and particularly this issue about the transformational learning, and really being able to say that, because I don't know that I've really articulated it. One thing that has been, I started out telling you that, you know, there's just been this incredible sense of joy that this project is done. And part of the reason is that finally I feel that now I can move to the part where I get to tell everybody what I've been doing, what I've been creating, and start to really, really explain it, because I can show it to people and I can say, we actually accomplished something. We actually were able to achieve something. And it's so exciting to finally be able to like spread the word. And I do feel like this week I really wanted to light people on fire, to go and look at the course, to buy it, to share it to other people, not just for the course itself, which I'm really proud of, but also for the idea of what we're doing, to show people, look what is possible to do online. Like, look what is possible. We can create things together. We can work together for love. We can make something that we can sell, and we can make something that really helps people, and as human, and not just sort of canned videos.
You know, there's a whole, I think you've had events where you talk with different people about the money issue with yoga teachers. And I mean, making money, it's not what gets me out of bed in the morning, and it's not what keeps me up awake at night. Well, most of the time. But, you know, I have bills to pay, and but, you know, the money issue with yoga teachers, it took me a very long time. I mean, and it's not just about being a yoga teacher. I mean, it goes all the way back to my relationship with my father. And, you know, basically until I was grown, I was pissed off at my dad because he was too busy making money to take me fishing. You know, I mean, that's what it really boils down to. But the point I'm trying to make is that it's an energy exchange, and we have something valuable. We have something valuable to provide, and in exchange, we would like people's money to support us so we can keep doing it.
You know, when I kind of started digging into this money issue, the sort of story around money in yoga teaching world is that it's because of yoga, you know, because it's yoga that we don't make money at it. It's because it's spiritual. It's because traditionally yogis were sadhus, and the sadhus, they took a vow of poverty. They begged for their supper, literally. And so that's the tradition of yoga, and that's how it should be. That story is totally bogus. And I started to dig into it, and I realized that it's just an excuse to not try. And the first of all, I heard the similar stories from accountants, from marketing people, from you name it. Like, as I got into entrepreneurship, I found that every single person who's passionate about what they do struggles with these same issues about charging for it. Like, literally, my accountant, I have had this conversation. If you go onto the business corner with my business coach, he does business, he helps people develop business plans, and he was a loan officer at a bank. He actually is sitting there like, I don't know who would pay for my services. And I'm like, you like work in business. Like, how can you not? Everyone who does something and it's their love and their passion struggles to ask for money for it. And it's really not about yoga, and it's not about our background. It's about that issue. And then as far as this issue of I need to pay the bills, I call BS. You know, I had to sit down and figure out that not only do I want to pay my bills, I want to live at the level I live at now on my engineering pay. Like, yes, I'm proud to take care of my daughter. I'm proud to have nice things for her and be able to buy her nice clothes and not have her struggle. And I like buying nice things. That doesn't make me a horrible person. Like, we expect that of
Yes, it
every
does.
other person in the world. Like,
Yes, it makes you a horrible person.
like, I like having money. I don't want to be a millionaire. I don't think that level of money would make me happy. But I don't think I need to sleep on a couch because I'm a yoga teacher. I just think that we need to really think about our value and know that we are changing people's lives, and that it's okay to ask for, you know, what we deserve, as long as we're really giving people something that's worthy of their attention. And that's, I think that was part of developing the course, was knowing that I was going to be proud of it at the end of it. And I've done so many projects where I didn't put that effort behind it, and then I didn't feel confident to sell it. But this, you know, I feel proud to sell it.
So do I.